Let's talk about a guy whose life story is so extreme it's almost impossible to tell where the facts end and the tall tale begins. This is the incredible, almost unbelievable story of Hugh Glass, a 19th century frontiersman and his epic tale of survival. Now, when you hear the name Hugh Glass, chances are you immediately think of Leonardo DiCaprio's brutal, Oscar-winning role in The Revenant. That movie, back in 2015, brought this nearly 200-year-old legend roaring back to life for all of us. But here's the big question. How much of that Hollywood blockbuster is actually true? Today, we're going to peel back the layers of legend and get to the bottom of the real story of Hugh Glass. It's time to separate the man from the myth.
To really get the legend, you have to first try and understand the man. And what's so fascinating about Hugh Glass is that his life was already the stuff of legends long before a grizzly bear made him famous.
You know, the official records on his early life are pretty thin. We think he was born around 1783 in Pennsylvania. But after that, the stories just get wild. Was he really captured by the pirate Jean Lafitte? Did he actually live with the Pawnee for years? We just don't have hard proof. But it tells you something that even before the bear attack, Hugh Glass was a guy people were already telling stories about.
But what we do know for sure is that in 1823, he signed up with Ashley's Hundred, a famous group of fur trappers. And this is where the verifiable and absolutely incredible part of his story really begins.
Which brings us to the moment that would define him forever, the grizzly bear encounter.
So picture this. Glass is out scouting for game, all alone, and he stumbles right into a mother grizzly with her 2 cubs. I mean, that's a frontiersman's absolute worst nightmare. Before he could even raise his rifle, the bear was on him, and the attack was just unbelievably fast and brutal. His fellow trappers heard the screams, and they managed to kill the bear, but the damage was done. And this quote from someone who saw him right after, it paints a terrifying picture. He was slashed to the bone, his scalp was nearly torn off, and his throat was ripped open so badly that you could literally see his breath bubbling out the side of his neck. Everyone was absolutely convinced he was a dead man. See, trying to carry him was slowing the whole expedition down, and they were deep in hostile territory. So the leader, Andrew Henry, made an incredibly tough call. He asked for 2 volunteers to stay behind, wait for Glass to die, and give him a proper burial. A man named John Fitzgerald and a younger man, probably the famous Jim Bridger, stayed. But after just a few days, they completely lost their nerve. They lied, claiming they were about to be attacked. Then they grabbed Glass's rifle, his knife, all his gear, left him for dead, and caught up to the main party to tell everyone that Hugh Glass was gone.
But here's the thing. Hugh Glass did not die. And what he did next is, without a doubt, one of the most astonishing survival stories in American history.
Against all odds, Glass woke up. He's alone, he's got no weapons, a broken leg, and these horrific, festering wounds. The closest outpost, Fort Kiowa, was over 200 miles away. To put that in perspective, that's basically like trying to crawl from New York City to Boston.
And for the next 6 weeks, that's what he did. He crawled, he stumbled, he dragged himself across the absolutely brutal landscape of what we now call South Dakota.
How he pulled this off was an act of pure, unbelievable willpower. I mean, he set his own broken leg. To stop gangrene from setting in, he literally let maggots eat the dead flesh out of his wounds, a gruesome but apparently effective frontier medical technique. He lived on wild berries and roots, and eventually he made it to the Cheyenne River, built himself a raft, and floated the rest of the way to safety.
So, after months of recovery, Glass sets out to find the men who left him for dead. Now, this is the part Hollywood turned into a bloody rampage for revenge. But the real story is, well, it's a lot more complicated and, frankly, way more interesting.
Yeah, the legend, and definitely the movie, paints this as a simple, violent quest for revenge. But historical accounts point to something different. It seems Glass was after justice. He wanted his stuff back, especially his rifle. I mean, out on the frontier, losing your rifle was a death sentence. So he tracks down the younger guy, Bridges, first. And when he sees how young the kid is, Glass reportedly just forgave him. Then he went after Fitzgerald and found him at Fort Atkinson. But there was a twist. Fitzgerald had joined the U.S. Army. If Glass killed him, he would be executed himself. So instead of some big, bloody showdown, we get this incredibly pragmatic ending. The Army captain made Fitzgerald give the rifle back. Glass apparently got $300 in compensation, which was a ton of money back then, and he warned Fitzgerald that if he ever left the Army's protection, he'd still come for him. So justice was served, just not the way you'd see it in a movie. So how did this unbelievable, true story of survival and practical justice morph into the epic myth of violent revenge that we all know today?
Well, it happened over time. The story first showed up in a newspaper just 2 years after it happened. From there, it just grew with every retelling, in poems, in novels, in movies. Each version added a new layer of drama, feeding this national hunger for heroes who were tough and rugged, all the way up to the global hit that was The Revenant.
As for the real man, his story came to an end about a decade after his legendary survival. In 1833, Hugh Glass was killed in an attack by Arikara warriors along the Yellowstone River. The man who seemed impossible to kill finally met his end out on the very frontier that had made him a legend. When you look at these two images side by side, from an old, almost folkloric drawing to this powerful modern sculpture, you can really see how this raw historical event has been transformed into art. The story itself has survived and evolved, just like the man at its center.
And all of this leaves us with one last, big question. The true story of Hugh Glass is already unbelievable. So why did we feel the need to throw in pirates and a simple quest for bloody revenge? It really makes you wonder about that blurry line between history and legend, and why sometimes the story we want to tell becomes more powerful than the truth.